report on a journey to the western states of North America and a stay of several years along the Missouri during the years 1824 to 1827 by Gottfried Duden. Third letter, 7 August 1824, near the Azores, number 5. What a long journey! 9 weeks on the ocean and no land in sight. In my former letter, I complained about being becalmed near the Azores. Now I could give a description of the thunderstorms and the waterspouts to which we have since been exposed. Innumerable ships glide safely back and forth, and there are persons who have sailed across the Atlantic Ocean more than 100 times. It is only natural that those who live far from the seashore gradually believe that the dangers exist largely in the imagination. Short sea journeys can even strengthen this belief, but in general, this is far from the truth. In no situation in life is man confronted so impressively with his complete dependence on the Supreme Being as when he spends so many hours on the sea. Every captain of a ship can, without violating the truth, relate stories of occurrences in which he was threatened with destruction, and in which he survived only as if by a miracle. Of all the regions of the sea, the Gulf Stream is most productive of such occurrences. I am still close to it. We have barely succeeded in crossing it. Our first attempt was unsuccessful, for just as we were halfway across, a little below 38° latitude, the wind failed us and a complete calm placed us at the mercy of the stream. We were driven back about 400 nautical miles toward the Great Bank of Newfoundland. This in itself was not especially fraught with danger. It is the storm clouds and the waterspouts that make a protracted delay in the region of the Gulf Stream so dangerous. Therefore, ships sailing toward Europe only rarely try to use this course. The frequent formation of these electric vapors seems to have some connection with the temperature of the water of the stream. We always tried to avoid them as much as possible, and yet twice we ran into such heavy waterspouts that we feared the deck would be shattered. The temperature of the Gulf Stream is so extraordinary that for seamen it is the surest mark of identification. The Fahrenheit thermometer indicated 87 degrees, while the temperature of the water just outside of the stream had attained only 74 degrees. In the winter, the difference is still greater. The cause of this phenomenon is easily explained. Enormous masses of water, which hasten at considerable speed out of the hot Gulf of Mexico toward the north, must necessarily become noticeable in the higher latitudes because of their temperature. In regard to the origin of the mighty current, however, one should call to mind the general movement of the tropical ocean from east to west, and also the formation of the American coasts. If one considers that this movement is restricted to the torrid zone and about 8 degrees beyond its limits, a fleeting glance at the charts will furnish a complete explanation of the origin of this greatest of all eddies in the Gulf of Mexico, as well as of its outflow along the coast of Florida. For the sea is constantly driven toward Mexico. The closer to the equator, the greater is the pressure of the water. Therefore, it is greater near the Lesser Antilles than near the Greater Antilles. Besides, the Greater Antilles, especially Cuba, present great hindrances. The current between the Lesser Antilles will then turn in the direction where it will find the least resistance. Accordingly, passing between Yucatan and Cuba, it will turn toward the coast of the continent, and breaking there will be forced to pass out of the basin again between Florida and the Bahama Islands. The Gulf Stream passes about 80 to 100 English nautical miles off the coast of the two Carolinas and Virginia, with the exception of Cape Lookout and Cape Hatteras. which it approaches almost too closely for navigation. Its speed there is estimated at 3 to 5 nautical miles, and its width in some places is 70 to 90 nautical miles. Farther toward the north, its width increases, temperature and speed decrease. It turns more and more away from America and extends in an arch along the Great Bank of Newfoundland toward the southeast, where seamen no longer take it into consideration. This bank, the main source of stockfish, dried cod, which some consider a product of the stream, seems to break it in a manner similar to the coasts of Mexico. Probably of no small influence are the polar currents, which are very noticeable near Newfoundland, and every summer bring great masses of ice toward the south, often beyond 40-degree latitude. In general, life on board a ship seems very boring. I have already written you earlier that I am not able to read much. Of interest to me were only sharks, flying fish, dolphins, men of war, and young whales. At 38-degree latitude, tropical birds also appeared. Except on stormy days, we were always accompanied, however, by a species of small swallow, even in mid-ocean, many hundreds of miles from land. Sometimes we threw some fat on the waves, which they ate, resting on the water and twittering merrily. One can also see oceanic birds everywhere, but not in flocks like the swallows. The sailors call them mother carries the chicken, the mother carries its young, because of the fable that the mother hatches the eggs under her wings. Considering the swift flight of these birds, a distance of 200 German miles is not so great, and at such a distance there is never a lack of isolated rocks. The man-of-war, of which there are several species, is an amazing animal. It belongs to the mollusks. The French call it frigate. The English man-of-war, warship. It is a membranous, vesicular creature the size of a goose egg, with its back covered by a membrane, which the animal uses exactly like a sail. The delicate creature shimmers in beautiful red, blue, and green colors. To its vesicular body are attached tentacles, which one cannot touch without being burned as with fire. Dolphins of the order cetaceans often pass the ship by the hundreds. We threw harpoons at them. However, all that were hit tore themselves loose. When they, the dolphins, arrived, flying fish rose together out of the waves in order to escape their dangerous enemies. A young shark, Squalus carcarius, the white shark, followed our ship for an entire day. I estimated his weight at 150 to 200 pounds. We wanted to catch him, and we even succeeded in piercing his upper jaw with the harpoon, but he tore himself loose again and disappeared. Several small fish, pilot fish, resembling a quarter-pound trout, accompanied him. The sea was calm, and I saw clearly that they not only circled the jaws of the shark, but swam alternately in and out again. They glisten in very beautiful colors and are said to have an excellent taste. The captain wanted to catch the shark because of them, for he said that he would be sure to find several of them between his jaws. We kept our distance from whales. No ship will try to approach them. With a single blow of the tail, it can make a dangerous opening in the strongest walls. Most remarkable to me was the luminosity of the sea. This phenomenon is not very common. I saw it 2 consecutive nights in July, at approximately 30-degree latitude and between 56 and 60-degree longitude. Wherever the sea was in motion, it resembled a glowing mass. As soon as the bow of the ship cut through the waves, they began to glow, and for quite some time the wake became a stream of fire. A shower of drops looked like sparks of fire. At some distance from the ship, where the sea was quiet, nothing could be seen. The water that was drawn on deck showed nothing remarkable. It could not be distinguished from ordinary seawater. This kind of luminosity is to be attributed to electricity, according to Forster. I have forgotten to remark that longitude is calculated by the distance from Greenwich, England. You will perhaps be surprised that I even mention these degrees. However, you must not assume that astronomers can be found on merchant ships. Our ship is supplied neither with chronometers, sea clocks, nor lunar tables. At any rate, most seamen would not know how to use lunar tables. Chronometers seem to be too expensive for them. They determine the latitude by the well-known reflection octant. Approximately as people solve the problems in their arithmetic texts without having any idea of the reasons for their work. In regard to longitude, they depend on a procedure that, even with the greatest care, produces an acceptable result, only if no storms are encountered on the entire trip. From time to time, the speed of the ship is measured, except in cases of sudden wind changes when the speed is measured every 2 hours. For this purpose, a small board to which a long cord is attached is thrown overboard. As the ship progresses, just so much and no more the cord is unreeled without pulling the board, and thus indicates the distance covered by the ship. The experiment must, of course, be limited to a definite time, for example, to a minute, which is determined by a sand clock. By the distance covered in 1 minute, the distance covered in the following hours is calculated, and thus the number of miles that the ship sails in an entire day. From this distance, the direction of the course and the geographical latitude, the longitude is deduced with the aid of tables. The Gulf Stream and several storms had hindered us greatly in the use of the log, as the little board is called. The captain hated my questions concerning the longitude. However, he always willingly gave me the latitude. It is the custom of seamen who meet on the ocean to exchange their longitude calculations. At present, we are between the Gulf Stream and the American coast at 39 degrees north latitude. The sea is beginning to lose its dark bluish-green color, and is turning more nearly green, which is a sign, although not an infallible one, of lesser depth. The captain believes that a plumb line of 200 fathoms, 1,200 feet, would reach the bottom. Ours is only 100 fathoms long. I hope it can be used tomorrow.